the end of the Second World War, there's this, after the tremendous loss of life, the UN set up, and one of the first documents they decided on was the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. And there's a tremendous debate in it in terms of what is a right. The Americans were taking it as a right of the individual. The Soviet Union was arguing that there's social rights, and they were all brought together in one document. The concept of human rights is defined by this charter. There are two subsequent covenants to this agreement, one on political rights, one on social rights. The United States has signed on to the political rights because they reflect what is in the Bill of Rights of the U.S. Constitution. But the social rights, health care in the United States, it's a commodity. You have to pay for it. Education, if you want a good education, you have to go pay dearly for that and go to some of the most expensive universities in the world. And you can go through all the social rights, and you can see that happening here in Canada also. The Washington Consensus there's an international think tank in Washington, D.C., and one of the economists there came up with this consensus. And this is the document that the World Bank and the International Monetary Fund works on. So if they're going to lend your country money, they're going to say, we want the Washington Consensus, and this is the principles of it. One is fiscal policy discipline with avoidance of large deficits, fiscal deficit relative to GDP, redirection of public spending from subsidiaries, especially indiscriminate subsidiaries, towards broad-based provisions of key pro-growth, poor services like primary education, primary health care, and infrastructure investments. Tax reform, broadening the tax base to adopt the moderate marginal taxes. Trade liberalization, liberalization of imports with particular emphasis on elimination of quantitative restrictions, licensing, etc. Number 8, privatization of state enterprises. Deregulation, abolish the regulations that impede market entry and restrict competition. And legal security for property rights. The interesting thing there is, privatization of everything, and now property has a human right, and you can see that in, say, the Declaration of Human Rights of Latin America. They've actually written that in, that property has a right equal to, if not better than, the human right. So if you see some poor indigent person sleeping on a park bench, think about it. Does that park bench have more rights than that homeless human being? When you apply this to housing in British Columbia, once that rule of law, or the law of rule, the Washington Consensus took over in Canada, the conservative element in our government started privatizing the land, the financing structure, subsidies to social housing, and all that stuff. And you can see it today in both Vancouver and Toronto. We're going into municipal elections, and the hottest issue in both locations is the affordability of housing. There is a formula that the government of Canada and all the provinces agreed upon, and that formula on affordability is that it should be 30% of your family taxable income. If you have a rent of about $1,000 a month, and that includes your heat, light, electricity, you would have to be making $40,000 a year total taxable income, family income, in order to be able to say that it's affordable. Statistics Canada has estimated, and they're the best estimator in the country, that the mean taxable income, and the mean is 50% of the people are above it and 50% are below it. The mean taxable income in Vancouver is about $38,000. So that basically says that half the residents of Vancouver cannot afford to live in Vancouver. If you are a single person, the mean income is about $27,000 a year. So if you're a student living on your own, where are you going to find an apartment for less than that's affordable? And if you look at the Canada Statistics data, what they have done nationally is they have divided the country up into units of 10%. So there's 10% of the taxpayers, 10%, called it, it's a decile review. And they projected that onto the urban areas. You'll see in Vancouver that we have a very lot of higher than average poor people and very high wealthy people, and in the middle, no middle class. And that is happening elsewhere in the country, but it's very strong here in Vancouver. So my suggestion, my summary is that healthcare, housing, education, they're all human rights. They're all defined as a human right, and it's necessary for us to have government intervention from all levels of government, federal, provincial, and civic, in order to enforce those human rights. And we just don't have it in our culture today.